The Route 16 Grind, Episode 8. I think there's something naked walking in the woods.
The Route 16 Grind is sponsored by Sea State Coffee, Warren Industries, Tuffy Security Products, and Route 16 Off-Road. Welcome to the Route 16 Grind, the podcast for outdoor adventurers. Each week, we bring you information related to off-road and outdoor activities. If you wheel, hunt, fish, overland, or are an all-around adventurer, this podcast is for you. Each week, we pour a cup of Sea State coffee and talk about informative topics, the gear, and the training that can help you have a successful outdoor adventure. We have amazing contributors and some great conversation. So, grab your cup and enjoy the show. Here are your hosts, Brian and Chuck.
All right, welcome back to the Route 16 Grind. I'm one of your hosts, Brian from Route 16 Off-Road, and I have my fellow host, Chuck. How you doing, bud?
What's up, brother? Doing all right. How are you?
Good week so far. Mine's going pretty good.
It's going slow. I'm ready for it to be over, ready for the weekend.
I felt like today was actually Monday when I went to work. I was telling my coworkers that. But nope, it's not. We're almost there.
I got a lot of stuff I got to get done this weekend for Alabama next week. So.
Oh, yeah, you got that. I'm kind of jealous. I ain't going to lie. Hey, y'all, I just want to mention real quick, I want to apologize at the audio quality, and I want to apologize more so to the person we interviewed, Sir William Goes. Phenomenal. We're going to bring him back on, guys, so don't worry. I know the audio wasn't best. I got a new setup for what we do the podcast from, at least at my site, and I had one cable in the wrong setting, and so that affected the record. And the initial one, when I initially pushed it out, you could hear me breathing, and it sounded like some creepy caller, and I had to fix that. So that's what we got left, and we will bring him back on. He's got some great adventures, and you might even hear some contributions from him in the future. So subscribe to us and follow us. But hey, Chuck, what we got going on for this show, man?
We got a big show this week, just like last week. On this week's episode, the Outdoors Update, Chuck talks about mountain goat population control in the Grand Teton National Park. From the field, Chuck interviews Jordan Tubbs about his experiences as a new hunter. And then in the rock, mud, and dirt segment, Brian talks about a brand that has been the standard of high-quality off-road lighting for the past 50 years. In our Go Adventuring segment, Brian interviews AxeOverland, an American overlander living in the UK. And then we finalize the show as usual fashion with the Cup of Joe segment.
The Outdoor Update is brought to you by Tuffy Security Products. Having your vehicle broken into is not a laughing matter. Trust Tuffy Security Products to stop opportunistic thieves. Tuffy is the industry leader in automotive security and provides peace of mind when you walk away from your rig. Durable and easy to install, Tuffy Security Products has adventure-ready consoles, drawers, and lockboxes available for you to organize your rig and secure your gear. Visit TuffyProducts.com and use special offer code GRIND to save 10% on your order. Remember to lock it up.
So welcome back to the Outdoor Update. It's the weekly segment where we provide you with stories, news, and information from the recent going-ons in the outdoor world. This week, I'm going to cover a somewhat complicated story, and it's a story that got more complicated for me the more I read about it, and it has to do with game management and our national park system. So in the Grand Teton National Park, they're scheduled to begin killing off the mountain goat population that's found in the park this Sunday. And the reason is because the invasive goats threaten the health of the park's Bighorn sheep herd, which is a herd that has remained relatively healthy throughout its existence in the park. And so the goal is to get the goats off the mountain range before their numbers become unmanageable. One of the issues with this story that makes it complicated, at least for me, is that the mountain goats are an invasive species to the area. And I, through ignorance, had always assumed that mountain goats were native to everywhere that they were currently located in the lower 48, but they just weren't occupying their historic range. And this was wrong. And in fact, many mountain goat populations in part of Idaho, from which this population in the Grand Tetons migrated from, and in other states, including Wyoming, Nevada, Oregon, Colorado, South Dakota, and then the Olympic Peninsula of Washington, they were all introduced. And the mountain goat's native range is actually in portions of the northwest United States, and it extends up through Canada and southeast Alaska. So the mountain goat, it's set me up to be a hypocrite, as typically I'm staunchly opposed to all invasive species, and I'll always favor native fauna and flora, but I'm enamored with mountain goats. I'm also enamored with sheep. I'm just a goat, antelope, sheep fanatic for whatever. It's the horns more than anything, just to be honest. But and I have intentions of hunting some introduced populations of what I now know to be introduced populations in the United States. So I wouldn't want any of them to disappear from anywhere in the lower 48. And this invasive species dilemma that I just described is kind of played out internally for me numerous times over the last few years, because it seems like more and more animals come onto my radar as animals that were invasives that I assumed were native species, or I knew they were invasive or non-native from the onset. And I thought, well, are they really hurting anything? So I had the opinion they should be left alone. And I'll be the first one to admit that this is due to my own biases as a sportsman. And I honestly guess that I should do better in separating a non-native species from an invasive one, with the latter being, as not defined by me, but the actual definition, an invasive species is a non-native species that causes harm. And the harm portion of this definition, in all reality, should be what we're most concerned with. And especially if that harm is imminent, which is precisely what adds another wrinkle to this story. And typically at this point, when you start talking about the government hiring private parties to come in and assist in population control and wildlife management, I start to rail on about how this is a shining example of why hunters are so important and why we should support the North American model of wildlife conservation. And this is due to wildlife having a value, and a big portion of that value comes in the form of a hunting tag, a tag or permit, if you will, in which state governments sell to generate revenue to assist in the management of said wildlife. And this particular game species, or whatever game species in question, along with other game and non-game species, are managed with this revenue. So then once you begin paying a party to manage the wildlife, then the animal goes from a source of revenue to a sink on the budget. And now the invasive status of mountain goats isn't enough to sway me away from this argument. If it was just, the mountain goats are an invasive species, we need to go in and take care of them, I'm still going to argue against the fact that it should be done by hunters, and it should be done through a tag system in a safe manner versus bringing in outside parties, particularly if you're going to pay them to go up in a helicopter and further cost more money. What is a big enough argument to sway me away and to kind of get me to back off on my position is the health of bighorn sheep. And just never mind the fact that the bighorn sheep is at the top of my biggest, baddest, and best big game animals in North America list, and that second place isn't even in the running as far as I'm concerned. The health and the science behind bighorn sheep populations, disease is a huge threat, and pneumonia is the primary threat to bighorn sheep populations. And according to the Bighorn Sheep Disease Research Consortium, pneumonia is one of the biggest hurdles limiting the comeback of bighorn sheep in Western North America. And this has helped in the decline of the population that was once estimated to be at over 1.5 million animals to current estimates showing anywhere between 70 to 85,000. Now, that's a huge decline. And disease outbreaks are essentially the primary rationale or primary reason that this happened. And usually when you're talking about disease and bighorn sheep, it always leads back to interactions between bighorn sheep and domestic sheep and goats. But now the concern's coming from the mountain goat, this encroaching on this historic sheep population. And the bighorn herd, as I previously mentioned, the one found in the Tetons, has been the beneficiaries of isolation when it comes to disease, and they've been able to remain relatively healthy. And now that the goats have moved in, this creates a really big sense of urgency. And they realistically come in and spread pneumonia to these bighorn sheep and wipe the population out. Some estimates say within 10 years they would be gone if they were allowed to be impacted by an outside disease carrier like these goats. So even though I'm not willing to like back off and say that this is the best option, this is the situation we're in, due to the sense of urgency, due to the quick need to get in there and take these goats out. Now I could discuss other options and discuss what needs to be done, but that's going to end up leading to an additional discussion that will involve the mistakes that have been made along the way, or the potential mistakes that have been made along the way that got us to this point, the hands-off approach taken with national parks, the delay in progress caused by bureaucracy, and then the whole science versus emotion argument in wildlife management. And that's just something that's really, it's a whole separate discussion. It could be used, it could be a universal discussion, not necessarily for this scenario, and a subject for a separate podcast. But yeah, this is a complicated one. I know it's going to evoke a lot of emotion in people on both sides, and how it should be handled and how it should be dealt with, and the let nature take its course crowd and all that. But if you want to read a little bit further into it, in the show notes we've posted the original article, a great National Geographic article from about a year and a half ago, that lays out the whole situation. It discusses a little bit more in depth the bighorn population. And then we've also posted some links to some research that you can check out as well, and kind of lays out what's going on with disease prevention and whatnot. So feel free to check it out. I hope you learn a little bit more, and I hope this kind of sheds some light on some of the complicated issues facing wildlife management.
Yeah, Chuck, as always, a great outdoor update. I wonder if we could find a hunter or maybe somebody that is tied to that specific area that can kind of offer more detail specifically to it. And you know, what you provided was just that, even looking at yourself inward, that the details do matter. It's not just about how you might feel about a certain animal or maybe some other knowledge, but looking at that specific area and understanding the details of it. That's what really wildlife management is about. It's getting down to the details, impacting the entire environment, not just one point of it.
Right. And this whole plan, like I said, it begins Sunday. What they're doing is they're sending people up in helicopters to shoot the goats, essentially. It's the most effective way. There are provisions to get the meat back if they're able to safely get to these goats, which odds are they're probably not going to be able to.
Right.
There's also some provisions in this plan for on-the-ground hunters. Now, on-the-ground hunters, I'm assuming that means contract hunters. I don't know. It was just from what I saw and what I read in the articles and what the Park Service was saying, that they just described it as on-the-ground hunters. So, I mean, yeah, it's extraordinarily complicated, particularly in this type of an issue. It's not one of those deals to where, we just need to get an animal out and there's no like real timeline. Like, this is like a super dire situation. And I just want to point out, though, that this plan has been going on, the development of this plan has been going on since, I think, 2013 or 14, right around in there. So it's taken a long time for it to come to fruition, 6-7 years. So they have thought it out and they have approached stuff, but it's one of those deals now to where it's by the time it all came together, it's like we need to do something quickly, and we need to just get them going and remove this population to preserve these bighorn sheep that are there. I mean, because there have been instances to where the government's had to go in and kill out entire herds of bighorn sheep because they've got pneumonia and they don't want it spreading further,
right?
You know, to try to prevent this successional epidemic within these herds, or I guess pandemic.
Yeah, listeners, if you have some more details on this, if you know someone connected to this specific environment, share it with us. So we'd love to bring you on too. Reach out. We like to feature your success in outdoor adventures. So shoot us the pics over to us with a brief story at route16.com and select contact. That's ROOTONESIX.com and select contact.
The Red Warren Badge says you're equipped to handle anything, ready to conquer any challenge that may come your way. That badge has stood for off-road excellence for more than 70 years. During that time, we haven't stopped innovating or striving for perfection. Be ready. Be prepared. Go Warn.
When you hear the calls, you know we have a report from the field. And today we have an interview with Jordan Tubbs. I work with Jordan, and he had recently jumped into hunting feet first. Some time ago, Jordan had indicated to me that he was interested in getting into hunting, but he wasn't really sure how to go about it. We had some discussions about game lands and whatnot, which was something that he was totally unaware of. And so he had the opportunity this fall, though, to hunt. And he was able to do this through the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission Getting Started Outdoor program for whitetails. Now, this is a program that I've discussed at length on a couple other shows as part of this R3 movement that's going on across the country to try to get more hunters involved. And I think Jordan lays out perfectly his experiences and gives people an idea of kind of what it's about and kind of what you can expect. You'll find out getting into hunting was really important to Jordan, and it was important for a multitude of reasons, but what stuck out the most for me was his desire to do it for his kids and for his kids' future. So I think Jordan has a very well-balanced perspective for a new hunter, and he sees the big picture, and I really hope that you enjoy this interview as much as I did. Welcome to the show, Jordan. Thanks for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
For sure. This is the second go around for Jordan and myself. Like I said in the intro, we worked together, and we tried to record it on our lunch break. We had a lot of technical difficulties on my end, so it just didn't work out. So now we're doing it remotely, but I think this will work out a whole lot better. It appears to be a little bit smoother. So anyway, like I said, Jordan's a new hunter, recently got his first deer. I wanted to have him on, interview him, try to figure out kind of what went into this whole process of him wanting to get into hunting and kind of see where it's going and just how everything's been going since his hunt. So I guess first off, Jordan, why did you want to get into hunting? What was the big driver for that?
Well, we discussed earlier, off the recording, just about how both my grandparents, paternal and maternal grandparents, grew up on farms or worked on farms. And I remember being 6 or 7, starting to go up there to Pennsylvania to my grandpa's dairy farm, waking up at 3:30 a.m. and going out there and helping them milk cows. And then we'd go and have breakfast after we got done, and he'd go dip his pitcher in the silver cow out there and get just pure raw milk and bring it in. And that's what we had. And he had a freezer full of beef, and they just always had beef, always had milk, just completely self-reliant. And that, it was a great living. But my dad ended up going to college and going on getting a master's and a doctorate. And so he did not inherit the farm, and that way of life is kind of impossible to get back if you don't inherit it. And so from early on, I kind of had that an impression made on me just about being self-reliant and working hard and providing for yourself as much as you can. And I guess it took a while. I didn't really appreciate those experiences until I was a lot older. But I guess in grad school, my wife and I, we lived in Athens, Georgia for a while. And one of the guys that went to our church was in charge of the fishery sciences at UGA. And I actually ended up living in his basement for a summer down there. And he got us into aquaponics. So again, just the whole fishing aspect, and he took me fishing a lot.
Right.
So again, kind of that whole self-sustainability, self-reliance aspect coming back to play. And I realize this, there's all this food around us. We don't have to go. We don't have to go and buy it if you don't want to. You can actually provide it for yourself. And so if I can do everything myself, I like to. If I could build my own furniture, I would. If I could build my own house, I would. So I have a passion for just knowing where things come from, knowing where my food comes from, and obtaining that food myself, or growing it or harvesting it myself for my family. There's a lot more there. But
yeah, I think that's really a common trend for folks that are getting into hunting and fishing at a later age, and like myself and a lot of my friends who we've been doing it essentially our whole lives, and we do it for a multitude of reasons, food and sustainability always being one of them. But there's tons of reasons that I do it and why I enjoy it and whatnot. But the kind of the underlying message behind most quote unquote delayed onset hunters are the food and the sustainability aspect of it. And I think it's awesome. Your grandpa's farm and being up there, I know, is a big driver to that. And I think you summed it up perfect when you said, well, if that's something that's really difficult to get back, if you don't, or even just to get into it in general, if you don't inherit it, you know what I mean? Because it's not a cheap endeavor. And the returns aren't really there to necessarily just to be able to jump into it as something you've got to build, but then being able to realize that the opportunities are there around you already to go out and to be more sustainable. I know we've talked previously, and you've mentioned how you and your wife and with your family, your goal was to kind of start a homestead and to proceed to accomplish your goals of being sustainable and providing for yourself as much as possible. So I think that's really a big underlying factor for most people. And it's cool to hear you say like that's part of your goal, and being aware that the food is out there for you to go get. And you don't necessarily have to have a farm. So
right. And you can, there's all sorts of farm shares or whatever where you can some people provide a certain aspect of it. But yeah, we definitely would like to have some chickens at least, and a garden, and possibly an small aquaponics system on top of being able to go and have land to hunt on. So,
well, you got it, man.
Yeah. And so I probably would have never gotten into it had we just not started. You pretty much approached me at work, and we just kind of started talking about it, and I showed an interest, and you just kind of jumped right in there. You're like, hey man, you need to come to this Getting Started Outdoors class. And if it wasn't for you just kind of jumping in and kind of taking me under your wing and inviting me to that, and then inviting me to go afterwards, and just kind of basically mentoring me along this process, it might not have ever happened. It probably would have happened, just not this quick. So I probably would have had to wait another 10 years before I sat down and was like, okay, let's start hunting.
Well, so. and I appreciate you saying that, and kind of giving me a little bit of credit. But I knew you were interested in it, is why I brought it up. And like, I didn't want to make any guarantees on my time and then let you down. So I was like, well, you can get into this program, just reach out. We got some folks. It was pretty local, and it accelerates the process a little bit. And I've had this conversation with a lot of people, both new hunters and people that have hunted and are involved in the GSO program. And I know this is a lot of hunters kind of feel the same way when you're talking about new hunters, but I couldn't imagine going out and trying to learn how to hunt. Essentially, cold turkey is probably the wrong word, but just virtually totally resourceless, because you can watch all the YouTube you want to, and it's fine and well, but then you got to get out and learn. And there's a lot that goes into it. And I guess if I was told things directly based on what I was seeing and being out and about, and it's a little different than walking around and trying to apply something that you, I guess, saw online or wherever you get your information from, or from a book. It's just such a steep curve. And I think by expediting that curve, and allowing people to learn things a little bit quicker, it helps to ensure the goal of you coming back out next year and hunting.
Right.
I mean, whether you've experienced any successes or not, you've got a little bit more confidence, and you're also aware that not all hunts are successful, because I mean, we hunted together, and one day, we'll talk about that shortly, but no deer were killed that day, and then we hunted later on. You were able to take your first deer, but the other folks that were hunting with us, there were 8 total groups of people, and only one other group was able to take a deer. So I think you kind of see it all. And I love the program, and that's one of the big reasons I wanted to have you on. But before we jump into any of that, there's kind of one thing I wanted to talk about, and you've expressed this kind of infatuation or desire to shoot a buck. And one thing for this GSO program, we were instructed to not necessarily go into the antler side of things, or the trophy, quote unquote. And it was because most people are coming into it from the food. Trophy hunting is viewed, whether it's correct or not, in kind of a negative light in a lot of circles. Mm-hmm. And there's this kind of like virtue to going out and getting your own food, but not necessarily. There's no virtue in going out and shooting a big buck and hanging it on your wall, at least to non-hunters. Right. I have multiple animals hanging up around my house. I see zero issue with it. I don't have any issue with grip and grin photos. I think taking an animal is something that you should be happy about. You should have feelings of excitement about. Those feelings should obviously they are typically going to be accompanied with feelings of sorrow and whatnot. But
and that's
with you being, what's the allure? I guess my question is, why with you? Because you do want a big buck. And I know there may have been reservations with some folks in your family about you shooting a doe. Just anyway, but just for you personally, why? What's the draw to the buck, to the antlers?
Well, I mean, for me, it's I would eat the buck too.
Oh, of course, right?
It's not
and
that I would.
I'm.
Yeah, but I understand.
And I'm glad you said that.
What you're saying.
I'm glad you said that, because trophy hunting to me isn't shooting the buck and cutting his horns off. Like, and leaving the rest of the body there. People don't do that in general. I mean, I know it happens, or obviously there wouldn't be this misconception of that's all that happens. But yeah, so I'm glad you brought up the fact that you're going to eat it. But but back to the antlers, because it's perfectly fine to do both. So.
Well, that's kind of my stance. Is I felt bad. One of the reasons I felt bad about shooting the doe was because I knew I'm probably not going to mount this deer, and so I felt like there was a lot that went to waste. And we have pictures of it, and that's all I really have. I kind of wish I'd have kept the hide and used it for something,
right? And
not to be, I would probably want like an ottoman or something. If if I knew I could have done that, I would have asked for the hide back to cover some sort of furniture. And
you definitely could have got the hide and done some buckskin with it. Anybody out there that's listening that's curious, you could have had the hide tanned. I have a doe hide hanging up. It still looks good. I don't plan on using it for anything, but you could very easily strip the hair off of it and whatnot, and you do have the leather. It is a little bit thinner, but yeah.
I just didn't know to ask for it. Again, just being a new hunter, I was like, well, I figured it was just something that nobody really wants. But no, my thing is I really want to use every single piece of it that I can, and so if I were to shoot a big buck, I'm going to have a lot of meat for, a month or 2 or 3 to eat on. B, I get to take his head and mount it and basically immortalize it in a sense, to where it's like, hey, here he is. This is the one this is the one that provided all the meat for me. Something that I'll have in my home to remind me, and I'll never forget about him. if that makes sense. Like it's to me, it's more of it's being more sensitive than it would be to just, waste it, just use the meat and then just let the antlers go to waste. Is to me, that's more callous than to mount it and be sensitive to it and to look at it and to remember, hey, that buck up there, he's beautiful. And
right.
To me, it pays a homage to the sacrifice.
Oh, you're 100%. Like it is. I mean, it's a trophy. It's a monument, and I think that's essentially what you're describing. It is a legit monument to a hunt. Mm-hmm. I've posted some things on Instagram before. I've talked about it before with people, but I've directly referenced these deer heads hanging on my wall in particular as monuments to hunts past, because they all do have a story attached to them. There's no bravado. There's no ego. There's nothing, at least for me, there's nothing up there that's like, oh, look what I did, pound my chest. It's the story of the hunt, and it is representing the species for as long as I'm alive. Now, what happens to them after they're gone? That's what it is. So that's interesting, though, for you to, like, I like how you put the spin on it and the perspective of you're doing more by hanging it on the wall than by shooting it just for the meat and then discarding the antlers. Right. Like, I guess kind of this false sense of those antlers mean so little to me. I just want the meat. I will trash those antlers. Well, I'm sure, and I know this is a little bit of personification, but that deer was proud of those antlers. He uses them. Oh, yeah. They served a purpose. So if you taking them and taking that moment and you like put it up on the wall, and they are very majestic creatures. So your description of that and everything, I think that was perfect. And I think that would go to explain to a lot of people why, because you're coming from it from an outsider's perspective of you didn't grow up around these deer heads hanging up. It's not a competition for you at all to match your buddy's deer heads or anything. So that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's like if somebody you cared about died, you're going to give them a proper burial and a proper tombstone. Mm-hmm. You're not just going to, dig a hole, cover it up, and forget about them, move on. It's like, no, you want like you said, a monument, a tombstone, something there to go back and remember the times you had with them, or in this case with the deer, like remember the hunt and just remember all the, I don't know. To me, like, again, it's a homage. It's a gratefulness. So every time you look at them, so
yeah. Well, and you've got the pictures of this doe. So I mean, you do have the memories and everything to look back on. I know, and we'll get into your hunt later and everything, but it's something I'll never forget. And mostly just knowing how much it meant. Yeah. Knowing how much it meant to me. I mean, knowing how much it meant to you meant a lot to me, and knowing why you were getting into it beforehand and what you wanted to do going forward and everything. So, I mean, you do have these monuments to this hunt. It's not that it won't go away. I wouldn't dwell on not having the hide and all that from the doe. I think it's awesome that you want to honor her just as much as you would a buck. I think that shows a lot of sincerity going into it. And also wanting to use as much of it as you can. I think is good. And since the hunt, I've learned that some things that you can do with some deer hides, that I wish I'd known then. I could have went back and told you some things, but I'm more than likely going to be starting to collect a few to have tanned and turn into buckskin and potentially have some things made out of them, moving forward. So, but
that's awesome. Yeah.
Now, I
was just going to say too, my buddy came up to me, at church the next day, and he was like, "Oh man, I saw you got a deer yesterday." He's like, he said, "Did you save the bones?" And I was like, "No, again, just me, just kind of naive, not knowing, a whole lot about it." He was just like, "Man, next time you get one, bring me the bones, and we'll make a whole bunch of bone broth." And I was just like,
yep.
All right, man. Like, there you go. Something I would have never considered. He was just like, "Hey, next time you get one, just bring
Right.
the bones to me. So
Right.
if we can get used for the bones and the hide,
and it makes a great stock. It really does. We didn't get to do it. I didn't get an opportunity to do it the year before last, but I still kept all my bones, and I kept all my bones from last year. I had a freezer go out, but the broth is excellent. You do need to look into when you do it. You don't, and I'm assuming this was with any broth that you make. I've done it with turkeys and chicken bones before, but with deer in particular, I monitored the heat a good bit. Mm-hmm. But I want to, and so I guess I should explain to everybody listening. When Jordan harvested his deer, he took his deer to a processor, which essentially is a butcher for deer. He dropped his deer off. He's able to tell them what cuts he wants, and they give it back. Unfortunately, the one downside for these processors is they're working and they tend to be understaffed a lot of times, and there's a lot of deer coming in, and you don't get to kind of get everything out of it that you necessarily want. Sometimes you get all the meat, but you don't get the extra stuff. Like, they're not extraordinarily concerned about your hide, or like you said, the bones. A lot of times the organ meat you're not going to get back. You can directly ask them, but and I always did when I used a processor, but that's one of the reasons that I started processing deer myself, because I get everything. I get all the bones that I want. I can pick and choose my cuts. And it just, I feel like I get a little bit more meat back. It's not that I'm necessarily more meticulous, but I have more time than what your average processor does. So that's kind of the next step and the next progression in your hunting, I guess, career, your hunting life, is to learn the processing side of things, because I know you want more out of it than the meat. So I think it's super necessary for you to learn how to do that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look forward to learning all that stuff. Don't plan on, slowing down. I've got the two boys and a little girl now that they're real young. They're too young right now, but as they get older, I can't wait to share this stuff with them and teach them this stuff and basically have a legacy full of just different skills to leave to them. So
yeah, that's awesome.
That's definitely on the list, is processing.
And that's the one good thing where these videos do come in handy, and YouTube and the books and stuff, because you can learn that side of it pretty easily from the internet. Mm-hmm. That was how I learned. Like, I had a very general idea how to do it. I'd grown up quartering up deer and taking it into these big primal cuts and cleaning deer, skinning deer out and whatever, and knowing how to take care of the meat pretty well. But it was the actual processing of it, to turning it into functional pieces of meat based on different muscle groups and stuff. That's where the internet really comes in handy. And that's something that I'm sure you and I will be doing together, and I'll help you out with. And there's plenty of deer that come through my house for people to learn and for you to show up and help. So, and then hopefully next year, maybe you got a couple more deer that you can get your hands on. So, but now with the GSO, so I guess, going into the GSO and the Getting Started Outdoors, first of all, like, what did you think of the program? Because I've talked about the GSO and other programs a lot, because these things are done throughout the country to try to bring in new hunters as part of this R3 movement. So I guess, since you've got firsthand experience, like, what was your perception of it?
I thought it was great. It was extremely informative. They went in start to finish. As far as getting the licensing, of course, we had to have our license when we showed up, but it just a thorough, in-depth, start to finish experience on whitetail deer hunting. So they went over all the safety stuff, all the laws, and then we went out there and learned how to scout and then track and the shooting. And then they had the guy come in and do the processing. And we got to see the field dressing on the video. And then, for them to invite us back out to hunt in December, you were there. We I was able to get my first deer. So,
right.
So yep. Yeah, I'm all for it. I thought it was just incredible. An experience I'll never forget. Very, very thankful for that.
Yeah.
So had it not been for the GSO, the Getting Started Outdoors program, again, like I said, it would have probably been another decade before I'd have been able to pursue it.
Right.
So yeah, probably the most memorable thing from that was the scouting and the tracking. Just because that was something that was so new to me.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
know, I knew like after you get a deer, I'd probably have to field dress it, and you know, I'm extremely familiar with firearms. That's kind of a hobby, but as far as the tracking and the scouting, that those were both really new, really interesting, and you know, just kind of something you can do in your spare time. You know, if you've got your iPad or computer, you're about to go to sleep, you can sit there and, you know, look at maps, Google Earth, and plan your hunts any time of the year. So that's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, and it's I guess the one worry that I had going into it, that it was just going to be a ton of information coming out. I mean, and the gentleman that kind of runs the deer hunting side of things for the North Carolina Wildlife, he describes it as you're getting information through the end of a fire hose, which it's spot on, because you're getting a crash course in hunting in 8 hours, and then you get to go out and hunt on another day. And I guess my concern was, is it going to be too much information, or things going to get breezed over? And I think it's awesome that you found that it was beneficial. It shows that our time wasn't necessarily wasn't wasted. And I guess by wasted, we didn't use our time inefficiently by giving out too much information, and you were able to gather some things from it. Because we want to set the groundwork. Obviously, you can't expect somebody to go out and be with these individuals all the time through a whole hunting season, through every second, for every situation, but to get you kind of familiar with it, and for you to feel like that it's definitely jump started everything. I think that's great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So now, with the hunts, so you've got the 8 hour class portion, which I've discussed on previous podcasts, and then you've got the hunts where you're guaranteed one hunt. You and I actually did 2 hunts. One of them was rained out. We went on a public land hunt, and the reason I wanted you to go on a public land hunt is I knew through discussion that you were going to be spending most of your time hunting public land. If you were hunting around the house, and it was a very alien idea to you. You weren't even aware it existed, correct?
Right. Yeah. I didn't know there was a place at South Mountain that I could go hunting on. So yeah.
Right.
I always thought South Mountain was just a place you go hike and look at the waterfall. So I had no idea there was a game lands portion to it. So
Yep. And hunting the national forest and everything too.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, so you and I, we went up to South Mountain Game Lands and we hunted, and I had done a little bit of e-scouting beforehand. I'm fairly familiar with South Mountain Game Lands. We hunted a portion that I had been on, but I had never actually hunted it. So I guess from your perspective, like how was that? Like, what did you think about being out and riding up and hunting South Mountain, and how that worked?
It was pretty brutal. I think that hunt taught me a lot about just the planning that needs to go into it. Not saying that you didn't have a plan. Your plan was great. I think we could have probably gotten a deer that day, but I guess the first 2 spots you wanted to hunt, the first 2 choices, both were taken, so we were just kind of winging it. But for me, it was a learning experience in just the equipment I needed to bring, because all I brought was a pack, essentially, and a coat, and I didn't have anything to sit on. I didn't bring anything I didn't bring a tripod or a monopod, anything to shoot from. So it was definitely informative of, bring a poncho, even if you don't think there's going to be rain. Bring a poncho, at least get like a bipod or something. But,
yeah, and you saying that, and I was aware of kind of some of the things that I didn't bring, and even that you didn't bring on this hunt, and it even helped me out because I was like, oh, well, I'm the mentor in this situation. I should have thought about that, but to me, it was like second nature. So it's totally lapse of judgment on my part.
No.
Yeah,
it was, I've done lots of backpacking and camping. I should have known. For some reason, I didn't even check the weather. So I was just like, we're just going hunting.
Yeah.
If it rains, it rains. But it was pretty mild most of the day. And then, but when that, I guess it's around 4:45, 5 o'clock, sun started going down, the wind started picking up, and that rain just came out of nowhere. It got brutal cold. So just real fast.
Yeah, it got cold quick.
But it was a good experience. Again, it was. I view it as a win, as a positive, because we both, I know I learned a whole lot.
Right.
Again, and then also about just kind of scouting as we were walking. Figuring out where deer were, seeing if we could find tracks, seeing if we could find the scat, see if we could find rubs. Stuff I normally don't look for when I'm just going out hiking.
Right.
But you've kind of given me an idea of, okay, when you're hiking out somewhere, or if you're scouting for a place to hunt, this is what you need. This is what it looks like. This is what you need to look for. So. Well,
yeah, we got lucky from that standpoint. Like you said, I had 2 ridges picked out we were going to hunt. They kind of both hunted the same area. It was places that I had previously scouted. I knew that there were some good bucks in the area based on trail camera pictures and stuff. Then we ended up having to hunt a different spot. Unfortunately, we ended up coming up on a dead end and in the woods, and it was just so thick. We weren't going to be able to move through it efficiently and be able to get to hunt. But we were lucky to where we did end up walking into the woods, we were able to find some deer sign pretty quickly. So even though we didn't run across that deer that was making them, you were able to see the sign that was there and kind of get an idea of what you were looking for and kind of where it would be and things, and what you would be looking at. So I thought that was great. I was happy that we did see that. I was pretty disappointed after that day though, just because of how it all worked out. I felt I should have prepared better. I should have better set the situation up. I didn't know at the time if we would have kept driving, there was another ridge that we could have went out on and hunted. But like I just had a conversation with a buddy of mine that I actually duck hunted with yesterday. We were talking this morning, and he had been looking at a map, and he was like, every time I look at this stupid thing, it's like I've never even been there before. And I told him, I said, it's the same way when I look at a map of South Mountain. It's like, why didn't I see that? Well, how have I never noticed that? So, but yeah, and I am glad you did get something out of it. My goal for that day, and I'll just be totally honest, wasn't necessarily for you to get a deer. I wanted you to see how to access the land. And you can take everything that you got from that day and go apply it somewhere else, find the parking areas and things. And there's still some stuff that we would need to go through. I believe you used OnX Maps that day, right?
I did. Yep.
You didn't buy it, but you used the app, or did you buy it?
No, I've got the free trial version, I guess.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And I probably won't get out hunting until deer season again, I guess at the end of this year.
Right.
So at that point, I might have time to download it and I guess pay the subscription. Right now we're in the middle of trying to get our house ready to sell, and we've got to move probably coming up this summer. So, probably just take a break from it all until again next year. But hopefully we'll be in a better place. Maybe even have, who knows? But I'm hoping to have just a little bit of land that maybe I could even hunt on, my own private property.
It doesn't take much, man. So it doesn't take much. Yeah. So after you get all that straightened out, we can definitely get you back out there, and you can get out there on your own. Maybe, hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get you out for a potential squirrel hunt or something. Before the season goes out, because that's quick, that's short. You do learn a lot of stuff. I talked about it on the last podcast a little bit about you do learn things squirrel hunting that are applicable to deer hunting. You learn some woodsmanship. You're already familiar with a gun, so it's a little bit different. But you would pick up some different things with a gun doing that. So, but so after this hunt, like I said, I was kind of disappointed. I began to feel bad that I'd kind of shit you out of an opportunity to get a deer, because I knew that we had a private farm that we had some other hunters coming to, and I didn't want to. I wanted to make it fair for everybody else, so I knew you wanted public land. You would get more out of that, so that's why we did that hunt. But we got lucky, and some people backed out of this private land hunt on this farm, and I was able to get you in on that. Mm-hmm. And so I guess going from there, I guess won't you tell the story from your perspective of how this whole hunt went down from the beginning of the day, I guess to the point at which I say let's stop from where you get to take the shot, or right around that area.
So I guess basically, you told me that somebody dropped out, and I I texted my wife immediately and was like, "Hey, I need to go do this tomorrow. Is that cool?" Or maybe it was later. I guess it was earlier in the week before we did that, but she was cool with it, and so tried to go to bed early. I actually packed a poncho the night before this time around, just in case, even though there wasn't any rain in the forecast. I checked the forecast this time too. But everything, the weather was perfect. Woke up really early, got everything packed up, hopped in the car, and took off. It was super early. I think we were supposed to be at the farm at 5:30 in the morning, and I live about 30 minutes away. So, you definitely have to be intentional about going to bed and waking up. But got there, and some of the other guys were rolling in, and I guess we kind of stood around the fire there, stay warm, and everybody kind of did a gear check. One of the guys gave me his, I guess, fall rest system, and made sure everything was hooked up right there. And then we got our guns and made sure we had everything, and we took off in the dark. So, and it was interesting because it's so dark out there. When we were making our way to the tree stand, it's like you couldn't see. All you could see was what our headlamps pointed at. So it was kind of eerie. I wasn't aware. I had no sense of the landscape around me. Like, I knew we were in a field, but I didn't know how far it went to the left or to the right. Yeah. And then, next thing I know, you told me to kill the light, and we got to the tree stand using your red light. And, again, it was really disorienting. So I'm glad you knew where you were going.
Well, and I think that's something that's kind of difficult for, a lot of people. Very few people are outside during the dark. Like walking through the woods in the dark outside of hunters. I've got a buddy of mine. He's only been hunting 4 or 5 years. I've talked about him on the podcast a few times already. He likes it. His name's Dustin. Hey, Dustin. But he hadn't been hunting long. But he still isn't. It's not a scared of the dark thing. His feelings are the same as yours. He was like, it just is weird trotting through the woods when all I can see is my feet. And it's dark outside. It's kind of disorienting. You know what I mean? It is not. And even for, I don't know any hunter that just like wakes up in the morning, especially people that are going and hunting game land and stuff, that wake up and they're just thrilled about going and walking around in the woods in the dark.
Right.
It just is something you do. And it only makes sense to me that it takes something to get used to. It's something I've been doing forever, and it's just kind of, well, it is what you do. It's what you do. You go.
It's not as scary. Like you said, it's not a scary thing. It's more of just like you have to know where you're going. You have to know how to get there. It's a planning thing. Like I didn't know where we were going, so I was just like, I'm just following you. Like all I can see is this red light, and I'm just going to follow. I'm just following you. So
I felt the same way when I was in Kentucky this year. The first time I walked into the woods, I had been to the stand the day before. I knew where the tree was, and I'm walking, and I had to make a turn off of this road. And as soon as I turned off that road, I was like, well, I'm either on the right road or I'm lost.
Yep.
Hopefully I walk up on the stand. So, because it doesn't look the same. I don't care. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like this doesn't look like where I was yesterday. And for you had never been there. So when the sun came up, I bet you were like, oh, That's where I walked from.
Yeah, it made sense. And yeah, so once we got in the stand, I feel like I had just gotten my rifle kind of set up and took the duct tape off the end of it. So, we got up there and I feel like we were just kind of getting settled, and you kind of turned over to me and you said, "There's deer right over there at, I guess, what would that be, like 5 o'clock coming up over the horizon on the hill on an open field." And I kind of looked, and you could just barely see their little heads up, like you said, just on the crest of the horizon. And man, right then and there, it was just like, oh man, we're gonna do this thing. So, sorry, I got a kid up there crying. If y'all can hear, he's supposed to be taking a nap. So,
no worries. They listen to my dogs a lot of times. So,
but anyway, yeah. So we saw you spotted the deer coming over the horizon, coming down, and they were coming just right beside our stand. And there was a few openings, a few shooting lanes, and I remember asking you, like, "Hey, do you want me to like put the rifle kind of right in front of you to take a shot?" And I remember you saying, "No, man, this is good. You can wait. They'll walk down right in front of us," and they did.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I started getting set up. And just waiting for them to get, I guess, in front of my line of sight. And
they did take a while. I mean, they came out and they fed a little bit on top of the hill. I could see them, bits and pieces of them. Then they kind of disappeared. And then when you watch enough deer, you kind of figure out, okay, they're going somewhere. And they kind of turned and started coming down the hill. And I told you, I was like, they're coming. They'll be here.
Yep. And then the leader of that little pack or herd, I'm not sure what you call a group of deer.
Herd.
Herd. Yeah. The leader of that herd was the one I ended up taking. And she started to come into an opening just dead straight in front of us, probably 70, 75 yards, right around in there.
Yeah, I ranged it at like 76, I believe.
Okay. And, but yeah, I remember you saying just wait till she cleared that little patch of woods, and I was already behind the scope, just waiting for her. I actually let her kind of walk into my crosshairs, so it just worked out perfectly.
Yep, and I mean, I was prepared to stop her when she walked out, and luckily, I was just getting ready to stop her by making a little bit of noise, and she stopped. She stopped perfect, and you were already ready, because when I take the shot out of my mouth, and we do have it on video, so it's pretty much as soon as I said it, the gun went off, which was something that, like you were ready. You were fully prepared, to take the shot. It wasn't rushed or anything, which was, for new hunters with a deer standing there, it could be difficult. I know it's difficult for old hunters with a deer standing there. So,
yeah, I don't know that I don't want to say that I'm used to it, because I've never shot anything before, but I've just spent so much time behind, I look at squirrels in my backyard sometimes through my rifle scope. So it wasn't it wasn't a new, I don't know. There was no hang up there. Once
right,
got lined
you had
up,
essentially done everything but pulled the trigger.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I've got good triggers in my rifles. It doesn't take much. So
right. Yeah.
So there was no fighting it once you commit to take that safety off. Yeah. It's only 2.5, 3 pounds of pressure, and it's done. So. Yeah.
So she stops. You squeeze the trigger. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
What happened?
Yeah. I'd say up until that point, I was fine. It was just, just regular, we're just sitting here it was like target shooting to me. But after I pulled the trigger and heard the thump, of that bullet hitting, she took off. I was kind of, that's when it hit me. That was when, because I didn't drop her. She took off, ran for, I don't know, another 80 yards or so before she fell down. But I was confused because I saw the deer there. I saw her take off after I shot her, but I remember asking you, did I drop her? And I'm like, well, I saw her run off. Why would I ask her that? Or why would I ask if I dropped her? And then you said about, just a few seconds later, we both heard her just kind of crash in the woods. Yeah. And I think what I was asking was, did she ever go down? Not that I knew I didn't drop her right then and there, but it was hey, did she just take off? Like, I didn't know if I'd had a kill shot on her or not.
Yeah, no. So, as soon as the gun went off, when you shot her, I told you, I was like, dead deer. I was like, she's dead. Don't worry about it. And to me, a deer running off is nothing. Like, majority of the deer you shoot, they run off. It's just the nature of the game. They're dead on their feet. It's something I guess you kind of have to get comfortable with. But, and in particular, I like to double lung shoot deer. Okay. So I'm shooting a little bit behind the front legs. I like to double lung them, and you lose less meat that way. And they are going to run off a lot of times. The majority of the time when you double lung them, it's a very short run. That deer from the time you shot to the time that deer was dead was 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But I told you immediately, I was like, that's a dead deer. Congratulations. And then we heard her crash.
Which makes me think she was dead before she hit the ground. I mean, she died mid-stride.
She did. And that's when the adrenaline gets going for everybody. Most people are good. It always gets a lot worse after it's over, because you get that adrenaline dump, and that's when the shaking really gets going. So.
Yeah, I think I was fine until it started getting cold. I don't think I really experienced the shakes too much. But the wind picked up and I started to get cold because we had to sit there for another 3 hours.
We sat there for a while.
So, and it after sitting there too long, I didn't have the warm hands or whatever. And so, it got kind of cold. But no, I don't. If I'd have done this younger, like if I was doing this in my late teens, early 20s, it might have scarred me a little more. But I'm very appreciative, but for the deer and for being the sacrifice so that I can eat. But
right,
like you were saying, it's just that's part of it, So death, you don't get to eat the meat without something having to die. So
yep, for sure, man. And I think that's kind of a separation. This is a horse that's beat to death in the hunting community when we're defending ourselves. But there are people that are separated from where meat comes from, and I think that it's something that everyone should be aware of and familiar with. I know not everybody wants to take an animal's life to do it, and I'm not saying it's a requirement to eat meat, but I mean, you should. I don't think you should look down on hunters for taking a life when you're doing the same thing, and knowing where it comes from, and it's a necessary part of it. So, so you shoot the deer, she crashes, you and I sit there. At this point in time, we're waiting on a buck. Another buck never shows up. Another deer never showed up. As the morning wore on, we both got kind of tired of sitting there having conversations and stuff. So anyway, but we get down and we go get the deer. So what did you think about the tracking? Because I didn't tell you this at the time, but the first sign when I walked up and when I saw bone sitting there, I was like, I know he did not shoot this deer in the leg. I was like, I'm playing the situation back over in my head. Like, I know it was a good shot. I saw where it hit her. It sounded good. There's no reason bone should be right here. I didn't tell you that because I didn't want you to be worried. I wanted you to kind of get the experience on your own without any outside influence or whatever. But I could already see other blood leaving the field, so I was confident.
So was that I guess was that bone? I mean, it had to be part of the ribs, right?
It was rib. It ended up being rib bone. It was a perfect shot. Spoiler alert, perfect shot. Which everybody already knew that, but
well, thanks. No, I only knew where to shoot because you told me.
Right. Yeah.
But no, I guess when we walked up where it had been hit, I didn't even see the blood or the bone. First thing I saw was where she dug into the ground and took off. So just a big old dirt clump where she dug in and launched. And it took me a while. You were like, because you told me you wanted to use it as an educational moment, and which I appreciate, because I would have totally missed it. But you were like, come on, you were like, there's sign right in front of you. It's right under your nose. And I was looking all over the ground. I was just tunnel vision on the ground. And I didn't see a whole lot of blood, just little specks here and there. And then you kind of told me to look up, and you pointed, and there was this huge just blood all over the, I guess this old corn crop that it was standing up. And I was, oh, there it is. That's where the impact happened. So, and then from there, we kind of tracked it a little ways, just a little bit of blood here and there, towards the wood line. And then, we kind of lost it right at the trees. And we kind of were, we thought it went one way, and we walked into the tree line and didn't see anything, couldn't find any signs. So we doubled back, went back, and I found some prints of where the other deer that had been with this doe had ran into the woods. And I assumed they probably followed her trail. And soon after we found that little track, we started seeing some more blood. And then you were kind of walking around looking for more blood spots, and I got down. I crouched down, and I could see under the leaves, the branches. I saw her laying over there, and you were like, "Come on, if you can see any more little blood spot, we can." Then I said, "Well, there she is, right over there."
Yep.
And you were ecstatic, man. You got super happy, and I was too. I was just like, there she is.
Dude, I love it, man. I love it. Never gets old. I don't care who shoots the deer. I don't care what it is.
Yep. I actually took a picture of it. Like from that point, it's like, I was like, hang on, I got to get a picture. Like kind of just that, like you said, that first view.
That was one thing.
There it is.
You did a great job of capturing this whole moment on photos. So that was one of the reasons why I said to you, man, don't worry about the height and everything, because you took in everything. You absorbed this thing, so you've got the memories. So.
Yeah, I'll never forget it.
Yeah,
it's like it happened yesterday.
Yep.
So, but yeah, and then we, so we walked over there. It was kind of. Well, I guess we did continue to follow the blood trail just to figure out where exactly she went, in the case that maybe one of us hadn't seen her, tried to navigate our way to her with the blood. But it was pretty much from that point on, it was kind of a straight shot. And then once we got to her, man, it was pretty cool. She was long gone. Which was kind of relief to me. I've heard some pretty bad stories since then of some hunters I know, coming up on a deer and having to do something else to it. So I was thankful she was long gone, and just you're able to kind of sit down there and pet her and feel her and feel the hide, and deer, it's kind of like a big dog. So it was,
and she was right where we thought she was. Mm-hmm. Right where we heard her crash. It was, and the tracking job, for a first time tracking job, it couldn't have been any more perfect, because you were able to, it wasn't a real struggle. To where we're on our hands and knees, but then again, at the same time, it wasn't like a stream of blood going right to her either.
Right.
It was, you were able to track her. You did a great job using tracks to figure out what was going on. You went back up and down the wood line on your own. You picked up the blood trail after we had went into the wrong location. So you on that tracking job, I was legitimately impressed with the things that you were noticing and the things you were picking up. And I think that's going to end up going a long way just in general of helping you become a better hunter, because you did notice things that I don't think a lot of people would have noticed without being shown. So, and it was a real struggle for me not to just walk right into the woods, because I knew she was in there dead. But I was like, oh, we need a tracker. And then when we get to the woods and we kind of lost blood, I was like, well, I'm just going to walk in here and find her. So I walk in there and I'm kind of trying to look around for her, and ended up making a mistake. I mean, I went in the wrong spot. And we didn't know it, but she had kind of turned a little bit once we lost sight of her. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And she had just taken a different trail. But I thought it made my day that you were the first one to see her. You were the first one to lay eyes on her, and you got all the pictures and everything, man. And congratulations again. I mean, it was, you did great. Yeah.
I'm still pumped up. We didn't go over that thing where I texted my mom and my sister that I got one. And I said, I got one, and we're just up here in the tree stand waiting for a buck. And they were pissed. Yeah. So they were like, wait, you shot Bambi's mom? So I was just like, well, if that's the way you want to look at it.
Does are made for eating too. Yep. Here in North Carolina, we have a fairly liberal amount of tags compared to a lot of states, and this is pretty common in the Southeast, but we're allowed to take 6 deer. 2 of those deer statewide can be bucks, or all 6 of them can be does. So it's totally legal, totally ethical, 0 issues at all. This farm we are on is a very, very magnificently managed farm. It's owned by the Jarman family here in Gaston County. They were bent over backwards to help out Gaston Paws, an organization that I'm responsible with, and they have the deer. They have tons of does. They have tons of bucks running around, good age class of deer. And
there
so
were
it
6
was
or 7 doe in that herd that we got mine in. So
there's no moral issues with shooting a doe whatsoever. Like I said, they all eat the same. There's no more of an impact on North Carolina's deer herd by taking out does. This is all scientifically based tag system. This is what we've been allocated by the state to go do. And so, but I got a laugh out of it. I understand the perception of it. And it's always comical to me. It's like, oh, you shot a doe. But then if you shoot a big buck, oh, you're just a trophy hunter. Well, what can I do then? You know what I mean? Shoot the little bucks. Well, that doesn't make any sense either. Well, because if you shoot all the little ones, then you don't have the big ones. So,
well, and I think it's funny because my sister's in the restaurant business, and it's like, well, I mean, you're eating a cow, that's a female bovine. So,
and anyway. At the end of the day, it's all personal choice.
Yep.
But yeah, that is a good point. But yeah, it's personal choice. If you want to shoot a doe, shoot a doe. If you don't. If you want only shoot big bucks, only shoot big bucks. If you want to shoot every deer that walks out and fill all 6 tags, do it. It's all personal choice. And I just think that's when getting into it. Like I said, this is something that's really foreign to me because I've been doing it my whole life, but I couldn't imagine the amount of pressure that's on somebody if you were to just watch YouTube and watch people hunt on these TV shows of like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. When most of the time these TV shows couldn't be further from reality. Like I should film something and put it on YouTube and we're going to follow around most of the people I know that hunt. And like, if I was to film it minute by minute, nobody would watch the show. They'd be like, this is the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. Like there's no deer. They never kill anything. Like what's going on? Well, you're not getting a highlight reel of a season, or you're not getting just the good moments. I mean, there's a lot of boredom. There's a lot of sitting around waiting. I mean,
that's what I appreciated about the Game Lands hunt. Cause we went out there. It was, we weren't successful. I don't even think I saw a squirrel out there. But just being out in the woods and again, I was still able to learn from it. Maybe not from a deer processing, field dressing perspective, but from a scouting perspective, from a gear perspective, and just for better being prepared the next time. So again, even I feel like you learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. So, or you can. So, you can
yeah. Well, it's the, and I hate that I'm quoting Conor McGregor, but I don't lose, I learn type deal. Like you've got to take something out of every hunt, no matter what. When you're going out and about, particularly when you're new and you're going out to new areas and things, you got to take something away from it. And I think if you go into it like with that perspective and go into it with the perspective of enjoying the outdoors and try to take as much pressure off of yourself as you possibly can, then it's always going to be a good experience. That's one thing that I've done over the past couple of years that's kind of made my deer hunting miserable is I've put a lot of pressure on myself to accomplish certain goals that I have. And then when they don't get done or the time starts ticking down or they end up negatively impacting my hunt. And one of my, I mean, it's not really a New Year's resolution, but for next hunting season, like I'm just going to go back to trying to enjoying it more than what I have the past 2 years, and just kind of the stuff that I've put on myself. And that's with me being a hunting for my entire life. So with coming into it and having the mentality of you've got to kill a deer to be successful, that's putting a lot of pressure on something on yourself, and you really don't even know what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean that insulting to new hunters, but you don't.
It's out of your control.
Right.
It's like it's kind of difficult to make goals on something that completely you can't change whether or not you're going to see a deer. You can do all your homework. You can do everything right, and you still might not see anything that season. Or that day.
And that's exactly it. And that was something I stressed when I taught the scouting portion of the seminar, because I told you all, I said, y'all are all going to go out. You're going to take everything that I'm telling you. You're thinking I'm sitting here preaching the gospel. You're going to go out, you're going to apply everything, and you're not going to see a deer, and then I'm going to be a liar. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But that's exactly how it is. There can be all the sign in the world. You can do all your homework. And man, realistically, especially if you're bow hunting in the Southeast and you're hunting some thick stuff, like we were fortunate enough to be hunting a cornfield, but if you're getting out in the woods and you're hunting in some timber and you want one deer in particular to walk within 30 yards of you, 40 yards of you, so you can get a shot in all of these woods, and you want to be sitting, you think that you're supposed to be sitting there at that one time when he comes by, and then you're going to get mad when he doesn't. Like, good luck.
Yeah,
I mean, I've spent a whole season trying to do that, and it gets frustrating. It's aggravating. But you got to realize it's going to be aggravating. You got to realize that it's hard work, and you have to roll with it. And I think if you sit out and enjoy it, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think the problem is all the big bucks. They know when the legal hunting hours are.
Yeah. Oh man. They're not dumb. And that's a joke that is cracked in many hunting circles. If you want to see deer, go squirrel hunting. If you want to see squirrels, go deer hunting. That type of deal. They always know when you're out there. They're kind of like Santa Claus, you know. Yep. But it is. I mean, that is a common joke. But I mean, it takes a lot of hard work. It takes a ton of hard work. Some of the deer killingest people that I know work harder than anybody I know. They go the extra mile. And that's why a lot of times I step back and I look at like how my season went and stuff. And when I'm complaining, it's like, well, what do you expect? You didn't work as hard as most people. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You weren't out there all of the time. So, I just think if you go into hunting with the mindset of, it's going to be tough. It's going to be difficult. It's going to be frustrating at times. There are going to be a lot of days where you don't see deer. Maybe you don't see that one deer or whatever. There is going to be adversity. Just enjoy being outside. I think it makes the whole experience a whole lot easier to absorb. And the reason I say all that, once again, is because of the media that's out there that you go look at. And it makes it look like it's like a turkey shoot. You know what I mean? I mean, in the sense of we're going out and shooting targets on a range, and that's not what it is. It's not picking and choosing. It's not shooting fish in a barrel. So
yep. I mean, I see a lot of my brother-in-law has a bunch of bucks up on his wall, and some of these, I mean, just huge bucks, and he has to go to Iowa or Illinois,
Yeah.
to find these things. I mean, he doesn't even find these around here. He's got most of the deer he's got mounted, are from out of state hunts that he's had to pay lots of money to go and do. So,
Right.
Again, and I don't have that kind of time to give to it right now with my kids are so young. So
right.
Again,
And there's
I'm just
nothing
happy
wrong with that.
Yeah. I'm just
There's
happy
nothing
to be
wrong
outside.
with going out on these hunts. Right.
Mhm.
Exactly. There's nothing wrong with however you want to approach the hunting, but I think getting into it, you have to be aware of the entire situation that you're in. And if you're going to go out and you're going to do it on public land, you need to have a certain type of expectations. If you're going to go out and you have the ability to go out and hunt these farms, you need to have a different set of expectations. And it's not a universal set of rules, and it's not rules. Rules is the wrong word, but it's not the scenarios aren't the same. They're not equal.
Right. I brought him up just to say, no need to compare yourself to, these guys
totally.
that have been hunting all their lives and go and spend thousands of dollars to be able to go to different states and do it.
Right.
I mean, that's why they have these awesome bucks mounted in their homes, is because they just put a lot more into it. And
right.
You got to be realistic, like you said, of you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So, and then sometimes you're not going to get anything out of it. You just got to enjoy being outside.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And that's exactly it, man. Well, brother, we're over an hour now. And I know I've eaten up enough of your time. You got a family to get back to, and I've got a to-do list that I need to get to on this Sunday afternoon. But man, it was good talking to you. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed your time out there. I appreciate the message you sent me after the hunt. I'm really glad I got to experience it with you. And I do, like I said, it's a hunt that I won't forget. I really enjoy being with other people when they hunt. That's one of the big things with hunting for me. And for it to work out and you to get that deer. And like I said, knowing what it meant to you, dude, it was an awesome experience.
Oh yeah, man. I appreciate you taking me under your wing and getting me started. And like I said, this is something that I'm going to continue to do. Hopefully for the rest of my life, and hopefully have a good legacy to leave my children. And that's one of the reasons. Again, I'm going back to square one here, but again, one of the reasons that I do it all is just to be able to leave that legacy behind, teach them how to do it too. So
yeah.
But yeah, man, you invested into me and into future generations by doing that. So I mean,
good deal, man. Well,
owe it all to you, man.
Well, I appreciate it. That's what we're all trying to do at Gaston Paws and the North Carolina Wildlife Federation, and getting started outdoors. And then your other state agencies and your Ducks Unlimiteds of the world and your National Wild Turkey Federation is to try to get additional folks involved so this can go on to future generations. And that's why we're doing it. It helps generate more money for the wildlife and everything, but I want people to be able to hunt for twice as long as what they've already been hunting. And for how many ever thousands of years we've been doing it, I want to do it double that. So awesome. Good deal, man. Well, brother, enjoy the rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow at work.
Yeah, man.
Be on the lookout for the podcast. So
I'll do it. I'll tune in and have fun on that honey-do list.
Real quick, one thing though, I wanted to point out to people, tell people what your Instagram is, because you do a lot of drawing. You're super talented with you do outdoor drawings and everything. I know one thing you're doing right now, it's Gun Doodles. What is that on Instagram? Yep. At Gun Doodles? Yeah,
just at Gun Doodles. GUNDOODLES. Yeah, I've been doing some gun portraits here lately.
Yep.
I'm big into the AR-15, and I actually used an AR-15 to take that deer.
Yep. So 300 blackout, right? 300
blackout. Yep. Suppressed 10.2 inch short barrel rifle. But yeah. Anyway, we can talk guns for another 24 hours. But
well, we've got a gun segment on the podcast. We'll have you back on about that.
Awesome. But yeah, draw guns. I draw wildlife too. But that one's just more for like the, I guess the outdoor gun, hunting, fishing. I draw some fish too. But yeah, I just do a lot of artwork. I'll do commissions work. If you got a buck you've mounted you want me to draw, just shoot me a DM and I'll we can work that out. So
yep.
Yeah.
And if they're interested in your other stuff, like I said, reach out to the Gun Doodles one. You'll send them, because you run 2 other Instagram pages? Well, one more with the drawings, right?
Yeah. I got one more with more professional stuff on the planning side of things that guys listening to this might not be into. So.
Yeah. Good deal, man. Well, appreciate you being on, dude. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, thanks, man. You too.
Hey, this is Nikki-G, and I grew up in Ohio, where there's not much wildlife. So I got a wildlife question for you. We didn't have any like bears or snakes or anything like that. And so I moved to North Carolina, and now there's like all kinds of wildlife. So my question is have any of you guys ever encountered a Bigfoot? And if so, was he wearing pants? Hi, guys. I'll catch you later. You have a good one. Bye.
So Bigfoot wearing pants. What do you think, Chuck?
No Bigfoot. I've never seen Bigfoot, but if people aren't aware, there is a Bigfoot festival. I believe in Marion or Morganton. Marion every year. If you'd be interested in checking it out, I've got a buddy of mine who goes. He's really interested in Bigfoot. He's a pseudo believer.
Really?
So, yeah. Like by pseudo believer, I mean he thinks it's funny to say he believes in Bigfoot to make other people mad.
Well, I tell you, I definitely have never seen Bigfoot, Nikki-G. I'm not saying he's not out there, but then again, there's supposed to be like a Great Northwest Bigfoot. There's one out here in the Appalachian area as well. So I don't know. Not saying he isn't, but I personally
there's one in Kaiser. I forgot about that one too.
What's that?
Kaiser, right up the road from my house. They've got one named Nobby.
No kidding. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, they're around apparently. So.
Well, hey, if you see one, send us a pic. We'd love to see it. And so would Nikki-G. Want to be on the show? Maybe share with us some interesting hunting, fishing, overlanding, wheeling, or adventuring news? Then give us a call at Route 16 Grind Hotline at 919-694-3356. And maybe you will be on our next show.
In the Rock, Mud, and Dirt is brought to you by Warren Industries. At Warren, we pour our effort and our thirst for adventure into every product we make. You better believe American pride runs deep here in Clackamas, Oregon. Here, a small army of engineers, technicians, machinists, and assemblers design and refine Warren products, bringing them as close to perfection as possible. Their work is backed up by legendary quality control that doesn't just stand up to rigid Warren standards, it lives up to the toughest demands of the world's top vehicle manufacturers and military suppliers. How do we know? Because they've partnered with Warren for decades. This quest for peerless reliability, this Warren difference, will be around as long as Warren Industries is in business. At least another 70 years. Go prepared. Go Warren.
Welcome to the Rock, Mud, and Dirt. This week I'm going to share the story of a brand that is well known in the off-road and motorsports industries. That brand is HiLites. HiLites was started by an American entrepreneur, Peter Kim Brown, and his wife, Carol Brown. Use their initials, KC. He did this in his garage in Saugus, California. As a pickup truck owner and avid off-road enthusiast, he was looking for some improved lighting for his vehicle. In the late 1960s, Pete was camping in Parker, Arizona, and nearly missed a necessary turn at night. Without any good auxiliary lighting products available on the market at the time, he set off to create the first off-road lighting system known as the KC's Daylighter, which has changed the off-road lighting industry forever. Now, Pete found some aircraft landing bulbs and retrofit them to steel housings, which would serve as the initial concept for KC's Daylighter. When friends and truck enthusiasts saw the performance and the quality of daylighters, they wanted the lights. Pete was a computer operator at night, so during the day, he would build KC lights in his garage. He started advertising in camping magazines and promoting his products at local races. As demand for KCs grew, he employed neighbors to help him with assembly so he could scale the business. Pete and his small team would also package and ship to consumers all around Southern California. The company grew rapidly, and by 1974, it was time to make the full-time job. Pete relocated KC HiLites to Williams, Arizona, where the main factory remains today. Little did he know the lights he engineered for his personal truck would become a global icon in the lighting industry with global distribution in 35 countries around the world. KC Daylighters served as the backbone of KC's product line for generations. As the demand of the deserts increased, Pete developed various enhancements including special patent isolated rubber mount and rubber reflector ring for the Daylighter to enhance vibration dampening within metal housing, which he experienced during his off-road adventures. The 70s and 80s brought more innovations in lighting, and KC was at the forefront. Many long hours were spent collaborating with GE engineers, learning about the intricacies of lighting, seal beams, filaments, and varied types of construction, wattage, what panel power was really all about. KC's products were always tested by Pete, but also by many race teams, which included off-road pioneer Walker Evans and Ivan Stewart. Since the beginning, KC's involvement with motorsports has been critical to the process of designing, engineering, and manufacturing the most advanced performance lighting available. In the 90s, KC developed various products including HID, high-intensity discharge technology, based on the same metal halide concept used to illuminate giant sports complexes. KC's HID lights are now found on many winning off-road race vehicles, including Cameron Steele, Jason Voss, Rob McCarron, Scott Douglas, Ron Whitten, Randy Merritt, Shannon Campbell, and many others. As the original manufacturer of off-road auxiliary lighting, KC HiLites continues to set the standard they created. Today, you can find many popular KC product lines on off-road rigs, buggies, side-by-sides, and more. From the popular Apollo Pro, Slim Light, Carbon Pod, LZR LEDs, and Gravity LEDs, KC has a high-grade product to light up your activity with the price that will fit every budget. Most LED light manufacturers offer warranties of 1 to 2 years. KC offers a 23-year limited lifetime warranty. 23 years, folks. When they say they are the standard, they mean it. Check their story and their products out at kchilites.com. When you're ready to pull that trigger on an awesome KC product, make sure to send us an email with the links of that KC product or products you are interested in, and we'll be more than happy to provide you with a very competitive price for those lights on your rig. We are a proud KC HiLites direct dealer. Middleman is not included.
Nice, man. I'm going to tell you, KC lights are one of those things that I remember from my childhood just because my uncle always had big jacked up Chevrolets and they always had KC lights on them.
I look at CJs, like CJ's kind of like my, I don't know, when I think Jeep, I always go back to the CJ model. Maybe for other Jeepers it's like that. It just seems like that is the rig you want to see, those big round lights, the yellow covers, big KC on it. I tell you, they're a great company, and they're not that really big. Even though they're big in brand and can go anywhere and you can find KC HiLites, they're not necessarily big as in well as personnel and stuff. When I first started all this out, they're one of the brands that reached out, and they were very supportive of the direction I want to go. And anytime that I can show their products, talk about the brand, I love to, because product sells itself. If you want good lights, if you want something that's going to perform, whether you're on the road, the trail, whether you're a racer, KC HiLites, that's where you need to go. And remember, Route 16, we're a direct dealer, so reach out to us.
Have an idea, or maybe you'd like to contribute to one of our segments? Then go to route16.com and select Contact and let us know your idea. That's ROOTONESIX.com and select Contact.
Go farther, do more, challenge yourself, dig in, winch out. Rediscover the fun of off-roading, all with the confidence that you can do more than ever before because you're backed by reliable Warn products. Led by an exciting wave of new Warn products, the off-road world has never been more energized. Consider the ground-up, redesigned, and never-say-can't attitude of the new Axon and VRX Power Sports winches. The most innovative, revolutionary winches on the market. Plus, the expansive line of Warn products for the truck, commercial, utility, industrial, and severe duty markets. You give us your trust, we deliver the performance. Wherever you go, be prepared. Go Warn.
Go Adventure! All right, welcome to the Go Adventuring segment. This week, during our Go Adventuring segment, we have another Overlander we are a big fan of. He is an American living across the pond in the UK. Scott, welcome to the Route 16 Grind podcast, bud.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Appreciate you inviting me on here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've been meaning to kind of do this ever since I kind of started this, but I had to get a little bit more organized and kind of figure the format out and work out some bugs. And it really is just every show you figure something out. So, we're already, this is show 8, so we know everything. Wow. So, hey, how about you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, man?
Okay, sure. Yeah, my name's Scott, and I'm originally from Indiana in the States, obviously. And then when I graduated high school, I joined the Air Force, and then I've kind of bounced around in that. I did 20 years, 2 days. And my last station was England. So when I retired, I just kind of decided to stay here. My wife's from Ohio, and that's what normally people say. Well, is your wife English? Is that why you stay there? But no, we just both love it over here. So we decided to stay.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's not something that many people are familiar with in the military community. I absolutely saw it, being in the Marines, and a lot of people who, there's a lot of job opportunities overseas now more than ever too. So, you kind of like look at that full scope and, you find a quality of life, a place that you're happy at. Yeah, man, that's awesome. What about your rig? Obviously you're Overland, you go by AxeOverland, tell a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I've got a 2009 Jeep JKU. And I found the right side drive. Obviously, they're everywhere here, the Jeeps that they have. And then it's also diesel. So that's something I was really excited about, is to get the 2.8 diesel and a right side drive Jeep. It's just, I love it. It's great.
Yeah, and it's unusual because in the U.S. market, there isn't a diesel Jeep.
Right. Yeah. In the Europe and the U.K., they've got loads of them.
Yeah, so that's one of the things out here. Like, people are going crazy about, oh man, hey, next year, Jeep's going to have a diesel. Yeah. Well, they kind of already do, but they just don't sell it
right,
to you.
Yeah.
Why overlanding and why that rig?
Well, originally, when I was stationed in Germany back in '98, I ended up getting a '78 CJ7, and that was my first Jeep. I've always wanted one. I finally got one. I just fell in love. A full Jeep life. I tried to bring it back to the States when I got stationed in Utah, but it wouldn't pass their inspection. So I tried to get it to pass, and I ran out of time and had to sell it. So I kind of regretted it ever since. So now over here, I was doing like dirt bikes and motorcycles, because I'm a motorcycle instructor now is what I do. And I was trying to find something I could take a bike in if I needed to. So I got a van, and I was driving a Ford Transit van for dirt bikes and, again, on-road bikes. And then I started converting it to a camper van. And I really enjoyed getting out and staying in the camper van and having, like a little stove in there or whatever I needed, and just being able to get out and stay out. So I ended up blowing up a couple motors in the transit vans. So I went through 2 motors, and then I finally decided, okay, enough's enough. Let's do something different. And I started thinking about all those, those Jeep days. And I'm like, I want to get another Jeep. And that's it. I think the 4-door would be perfect, because I can kind of do a bit with the back and a rooftop tent and everything. And then, so I started my search, and kind of a shameless plug, but there's a company over here called Buzz Special Vehicles. And when I started looking for a Jeep, I'd been out of it for so long, I called them and I was like, hey man, I want to buy a Jeep. Here's what I want to do. Do you have any tips? What should I look for? And we kind of narrowed it down to 2007 to 2009. And I told them I wanted diesel and everything. So whenever I'd find one, I'd kind of ring him up and be like, hey, this is what I'm looking at. And he's like, well, check this, make sure. I'm like, yeah, that's not good. He goes, yeah, leave it alone. So they were with me since October, and I didn't actually buy a Jeep till January. So they weren't making any money off me at all. They were just legitimately helping, someone find their dream Jeep. And then, so obviously when I finally got it and I needed to get work done, that was the first place I ran to. So they're the ones that done the lift and the wheels, tires, the bumper, snorkel, all that stuff. They done it all there.
That's awesome. And there's no shameless plugs here, and feel free to give us their info. We'll make sure to put in the show notes, because I'm pretty sure we do have other UK listeners besides you, believe it or not. Yeah. I'm pretty sure you helped create that buzz. But, might be some others that might be interested in doing what you did. It's great to have resources to go to. Speaking of which, how hard or easy is it for you to get parts and accessories for your rig? Is it more expensive, harder to find?
If you buy them over here, yes, it's more expensive. Usually like AEV, I use a lot of their products, like the lift and stuff like that. And like some of the tire carrier and the tire caddy is all AEV. So Buzz Special Vehicles stock that. So I could get a whim and say, hey, I need a fuel caddy. And I could run down there and get it, bring it home and install it. So I'm lucky in the fact that they're AEV, ARB, and Warn dealers. So that's where I got when it's time to get a Warn winch, it's kind of heavy to be shipping over here, from the States. So I went to them and I ended up getting my my VR Evo, 12,000 or 12.5 from them, the synthetic one. So they had it in stock. So it's just easy.
Yeah, and that's like their new line that just came out too.
Yes.
How do you like that winch?
I haven't used it in anger yet, but I love the ability to go wireless or wired. So that's going to be great. And this is my first time, honestly, ever owning a winch, because on the old Jeep, I never got around to putting one on it. So this is I'd again rather have it and not need it.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, I agree with that. I do. And that was really when I first got my Jeep I have now, Root, in 2011, the very first purchase I did was a front bumper and a winch.
Yep.
And that one actually had the older remote where you actually had the wire that went into the winch, and then comes all out to a remote that you had to mount inside the engine. And then you had that external. Now it's, little adapter you can put right on. And that's super cool. And I think that the current one in the lines is more responsive than the one I had before. I didn't really use it before because it was always delay and all this other stuff, and I just didn't feel comfortable with it. But I just used it probably 3 months ago and totally use it. I was taking down trees in my backyard of all things. So I was knocking down some pine and moving them and all that with my winch, and that remote was just so handy, and it was just so responsive. And yeah, I think it's a great thing, and I'm glad they included it with the Evo line. And it's a wonderful winch to get. It's modestly priced. It may not be as quick as moving that line, but then again, when you're winching, it's not really a speed contest.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because we're big
not
Ward
unless you're
fans
king
here.
of hammers or something. Yeah. Even having the wired one though is like, I remember reading like 4-Wheel Drive magazine when I was a kid, and how iconic was that? Someone was hanging out the window with a winch controller in their hand. I'm like, oh, that's what I need to do. So I still got that picture in my head when I have to use it. That's what I'm seeing, but I know it won't be that way, unfortunately.
I think that's like anything that we have in our rig. We're just looking forward to that opportunity to use any of it. I broke down and went ahead. I really like those as well, because you kind of have that tag AxeOverland, but I really wanted one of those Hunk Brutes axes forever, like their hatchets. I mean, they're a little pricey, and so I had some like mad points with one of my cards, or whatever. So I was like, man, I'm going to pull the trigger and get it. So I used the points and got that. Oh, that's such a nice piece of gear right there.
Yeah,
and it's in my Tuffy box, and it's ready to be used.
Oh yeah. I've got a Helco Work, or Verk as they say in Germany, but yeah, I found one. It's like a Black Forest product type thing, really nice, like kind of a mid-size axe. But yeah, that's my baby.
Yeah, man. I tell you, I've really used my old axe, and this one, it'll get used. So as an overlander, what places do you like to drive and travel to in the UK? Do you go outside of the UK, like to mainland Europe or any other place that you can possibly travel to? And how hard or easy is it to do that?
Yeah, there's about 2 hours away is Dover, and you take the ferry from there over to Calais in France. And it's like a 2-hour crossing, or you can take the Channel and they'll put you on a train and take you under the water and get you in France as well. But I did last August, I do remote control cars, well, actually trucks and cars. And there's a big event that's called the G6, the Recon G6. And it's ran by an American guy named Brian Parker from Missouri. So a fellow Midwesterner like me. And he hosts events all over the world. He's actually a good friend of mine. And he did one in Belgium. So me and a buddy from here decided we're going to take the Jeep over to Belgium and did the event there. So like we had the 270 awning out, kind of like a base station for us to work on our trucks. And then I had the rooftop tent to sleep in. So yeah, it was a great trip.
And that's super convenient, because it can get pricey, and, having all that ready available. And plus you get a different perspective of the landscape there. You're not necessarily going into the urban environment. It's not, you have a lot more freedom of travel. And I just love the whole overlanding thing. And I always tell every overlander, it's like, man, I remember like when I was first in the Marine, I just literally said this last podcast. When I was
I know. I was listening.
Like, awesome. Gosh, I remember doing all that, dude. I think it's because social media wasn't out. I really thought about that. When I was talking to Sir William Goes, and I was kind of just thinking about our interview, and I was like, you know what? Social media has done, because I wasn't the only one. I mean, there were plenty of people. There were plenty of buddies I had that did the same thing. And if you look at the people that were moving cross country, like in the 20s and 30s and stuff, you're talking about Dust Bowl stuff and all that. They're literally living out of that vehicle. And you saw some of those, mobile camps, and they were really overlanding, those little small, cars and whatnot. But I think just social media has created a phenomenon about it. And I think too is just that's what structured all this big business. And you see like these trailers and all these pop-up tents and stuff like that. And for someone like yourself, I mean, I follow you. I'm a huge fan. Where do you find that balance when it comes to gear?
Oh wow! When you run out of room, that's a good point. I feel like when I'm packing, I'm like, oh, that's great. But actually, just from trial and error. Like when I first went, I wanted to try everything out. I only went 10 miles away from the house, this little campsite, and I had so much stuff. It was just like, okay, you don't need this or that, and just kind of stay there for a couple of days. And it's like, okay, this box never even got open, so do you really need it?
Right.
And then just kind of having a breakout for like, this is for a week, this is for just a couple nights or whatever. And right now I'm planning a trip. I'm leaving at the end of January. I'm doing 2 weeks in Scotland with just me and the Jeep, and I can't wait.
That's some good terrain, man. I've been out that way. A lot of and a walking method, and that's some really good terrain out there. That's fun. Beautiful country. A lot of fog though too, but it's beautiful. I'm going. It's going to be cold, obviously, but I've got the little buddy heater and stuff like that, and I've also got a wood burning stove and a bell tent. That's an option if it gets really cold. But I'm just 2 weeks, and it's a 500-mile route, and it's called the North Coast 500. That's what they call it. And a lot of people equate it to the Route 66 in the States. This is kind of like Scotland's version, and it's been marketed that way to get people to come to Scotland. It's all the way at the top of Scotland. I mean, there's a few islands up above it, but mainland Scotland, that's like kind of it. That's as far as you can go. And then one thing I didn't even realize until I was doing research is that there's areas of Scotland in the time that I'm going that you can see the Northern Lights. And I've never seen that before. So I'm really hoping that everything lines up. And if it does, you'll know, because it'll be all over Instagram. Yeah. I follow you, but definitely share those with us, man. We'll get that out too. Yeah. That is awesome. And, and I like the fact too, is that it's an experience that maybe you're able to share with people that can't, be able to do that. That's one thing, one aspect I learned in the last interview. Like, I never really thought of it that way. And what you're sharing is maybe something that's the only way that someone else can experience.
And I'm doing the same thing here, watching like Trail Recon. I've never wheeled in California, and like obviously on Overland X on Instagram, Marco, he's out there killing it too. And it's just like, and then what's his name? Rob. Really great guy from VTW Explore. Those guys are just doing great, man. And it's like, and I would never see that side of the States because I never really lived over there other than Utah, but only for a couple of years, but I didn't really do any four-wheeling. Right. So I get to experience that from here just by watching YouTube. So
yeah, super, super cool. I do enjoy that. It's really like time in the day to enjoy all of that. Sometimes you got to piece it out. But, far as your rig, and you talked about with space, I mean, that's something with me is I look at weight, I look at space, and I don't think you could do shortcuts where it comes to something that's going to provide you cover, heat, first aid. So it's, those other things where you apply your redundancy and whatnot. And also how far away are you really getting off the grid?
Exactly.
Where does your maintenance come in and all that? How religious are you on your maintenance?
I myself, not really well, but I
appreciate the honesty though.
Yeah. And Buzz Special Vehicle, hooks it up, but like maintaining as far as like keeping clean and oiled and stuff. Yeah, I do that. But when it comes time, like I don't know engine stuff that well. I mean, I can do a little bit, but obviously like timing belt and water pump and stuff like that need to be swapped out. I got that done when I got the Jeep. The Jeep had 60,000 miles when I got it. So that was kind of one of the things I wanted to get knocked out so I didn't have to worry about it. So I definitely went and said, hey man, give this thing a once over. I don't know what the guy before me did to it. So we got it and got a good base and found some issues and got them fixed straight away.
Yeah, so that's a good thing. You have someone that actually has been, a maintenance crew, if you will, that you can go to actually knows your vehicle and whatnot. Because that's one thing where people take trips or people go hit the trail that's where you don't want to find out, oh man, I should have replaced that, and everything.
Yeah,
in the UK, I've been there a few times too. It's the gas stations and all that. They're not like here. They're little bit different, and finding that resource for assistance may not be as easy. Like, as far as a tow truck, is that like they have like a AAA over there?
Yeah, it's actually AA is what they call it here. It's just 2 A's. But I have that, and literally, I blew a turbo hose because the diesel's turbo. I blew that turbo hose and called AA because I didn't have a way to fix it, and they came out and kind of put like a cast on it, and got me home. And then I went back and just replaced it with the silicone ones that it should have had, that I should have done immediately, but I didn't. So now that's good to go. But yeah, AAs, they're really responsive, I should say, within an hour or so. They come get you and take you home if they need to, or take you to the garage that you want to go to, or just fix it if they can. So yeah, they're pretty good. Now,
far as, when you first got into this and everything else, what were the big key resources you used? Obviously, everyone uses YouTube and stuff. Was there anything beyond that you utilized to kind of jump in, and on top of, you used the garage that you go to? But
yeah,
were there certain things that you would probably recommend to somebody?
Oh yeah, just getting on to Facebook and finding the groups, and then I'm a big podcast guy too. I love listening to podcasts. And I found when I was originally looking for a Jeep, I said, you know what? I drive all over the UK doing the RC car thing. So I'm like, I want to hear about Jeeps. I've listened to this music over and over again. So I found the Jeep Talk Show.
Heck yeah, we like that show.
Yeah. And that's how I found you, and you've helped me out get parts. So that's awesome. Thanks, Brian. I've told you that 100 times, but there you go again. But yeah, so that's got me stuff. And then, finding other podcasts. Now they also got obviously yours. I don't miss this one. And then, Rigged for Dirt's another one that I really like a lot with, Ali and Frank. One guy's got a Jeep JKU, and the other guy's got a FJ Cruiser, and they get some good people on there.
A Jeep and an FJ hanging together. You got to share that with me. I'm not familiar with that one. I definitely need to see that.
And they both drive. Got KC as a sponsor as well, so they got some good lights coming in.
Right, great brand. Yeah. Love them. Great company.
Me too. Yeah, so basically podcasts and YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, just following those and searching those hashtags, man. Find all kinds of cool stuff.
Outside of the Scotland trip, do you have any other big plans this year? Things you're looking at, potential, maybe next year or something like that?
I definitely want to get back to mainland Europe again. I'd like to go back to Belgium. They're having the event there again, and possibly get down to Italy and Ireland. I love Ireland, so if I can get back over to Ireland, that'd be good. I've not taken the Jeep there yet, so that'd be a good trip. But we've got Wales and Ireland and the full island, obviously, here. But it's just so much to do. It's kind of hard to pick.
Well, keep us posted on that. We definitely are going to be involved in following you for sure. And as you take on these trips and stuff, you're more than happy to bring you back. So where can we find you and continue to follow you and your adventures? Where, listeners, if they want to kind of see what you're doing, look at your build, follow your page, where would they go?
YouTube. That's where I try to do a lot on there. I've kind of missed for a couple of weeks, but I'm back now. The last video I did was talking about how long my fridge lasted with my Goal Zero Yeti that I have. And I got a lot of questions about it. So I finally made the follow-up video and kind of let people know. I'm on Instagram, AxeOverland as well, and Facebook. I'm not too keyed up on Twitter for some reason, but I definitely need to get more proficient on there. But mainly Instagram and YouTube are probably the top two places. And that's where I'll keep updating. Like big things I've got to do to the Jeep is I've got to get the gears installed. I've had them for almost a year, but I'm just looking for the right garage to put them in. And Buzz Special Vehicles doesn't do gears, and I appreciate them telling me that that's not their specialty. So they're like,
not an easy task, and you need the right person to do it. Then you know it could go bad quick.
Yep. So they're trying to help me find the right place to get that done, and then I'll be putting 410s in it. Right now, it's got 321s, and with 35s and all the load that I put on there, it's a bit slow to take off. But once you get up cruising, it'll cruise really well. But it's just a really high geared thing right now, so numerically low. But yeah, it needs some help. So hopefully, I'll have a video somewhat soon of that update with I got an air locker for the rear and ARB compressor going in. So hopefully soon.
Oh, you got some work, definitely. I'm just worried about replacing my, dried out flex ties, and you got some big project stuff going on. Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, real quickly, what gear brand did you go with?
I went with Yukon.
I love those guys.
Yeah, everybody's like, look, dude, if you do it right. So, and then the Yukon has always came up, and I watched the King of Hammers.
Yep, I was gonna say King of Hammers. Look what they're running.
I was like, all right, let's get the Yukon, and the Yukon was like, well, we have a locker too. I'm like, yeah, well, I kind of already went with ARB. Sorry, but,
right?
Yeah,
and you know what? Their wizard was a diff wizard, and like they have so much assistance within their whole. I'm trying to remember the big brand that actually Yukon is owned by.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it slipped my mind. But anyways, they have so much assistance available to make sure you get the right part for what you're trying to do, what you're trying to build.
Right.
I've talked to one of their guys for a while, a couple of years ago when we're looking at sponsorships and stuff like that. And I was blown away by the amount of assistance that brand. So it's a great product. And, you know, if you need help, you can literally reach out to one of their people, and they will assist you. They take every aspect of it seriously. And, you know, not all brands are like that. I mean, they might make a good product, but it might be hard to get a hold of somebody if you kind of have some questions or whatnot. But, yeah, man, hey, thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
For being here.
You going to make it?
Yeah. Huh? Yeah.
You sure? Because we want to bring you back, so you got to make it.
Oh, yeah, I'll be fine, man. It's been a long weekend. Like I said, I just drove about 3 hours to get home from where I was, so I'm just trying to take in a whole weekend of just running around in circles.
Yeah, you know what? And I should have mentioned, like, this is actually in the afternoon for me. This is like late evening for you, so I really appreciate you staying up to do this too. So,
no worries.
Thank you so much, and we'll definitely bring you back. We'll put your information on the show notes and share with me that one company that works on your rig, and I'll make sure to put that in the show notes as well.
Man. I really appreciate you inviting me on here, man. It's been great.
Absolutely. We'll check back in with you in a few months, man. You can bring you back on.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Appreciate it.
Since 1989, Tuffy Security Products has been the industry leader in automotive security. Tuffy has a variety of vehicle-specific consoles, drawers, and lockboxes. Tuffy manufactures adventure-ready organization and security for your Jeep, truck, or SUV. Visit TuffyProducts.com and use special offer code GRIND to save 10% on your order. The Cup of Joe segment is brought to you by C-State Coffee. Have you ever actually drank good coffee? Stop wasting your money on old, stale coffee from the store and make the switch to C-State Coffee. C-State Coffee is a United States Marine Corps veteran-owned and operated roastery, selling premium coffee that's roasted on order and delivered fresh to you. Order your coffee today at www.cstatecoffee.com.
What a great show. 2 great interviews, Chuck.
For sure, man. I'm enjoying the interviews. I think it's adding something new to the show that we intended on adding. But no, I'm hoping that the listeners enjoy it, because I feel like that's kind of the direction we want to take this podcast with some conversation intermixed with the news and everything, and just hopefully we can keep it going. I actually just got a message. And while you were wrapping up your in the rock, mud, and dirt, I got a message from some folks that we'll be interviewing coming up pretty soon, hopefully this weekend, for the from the field. And nice. I think it's a group of folks that are really going to kind of get some people excited. They're in that hunting and fishing space. So
I'm excited. I can't wait for it. And definitely appreciate Jordan and everything. That was a very personal interview, and that's what we want to bring to y'all, folks. Is we're not looking just to bring out just the brands, but people are a big part of this show. Last year we did a people and brand celebration, and that's probably just going to continue on forever as Route 16 exists. Jordan, just an amazing experience. I could feel like I was almost in there, especially when you were tracking the deer. I love that part when he was describing that, and I'm with you. I'm so glad that he saw it first.
Yep. Oh, dude, yeah. The fact that he saw it first and like I didn't point it out, and I kind of expected going into the situation that I was going to see the deer first, and then I was going to have to kind of play stupid, kind of how I was doing a little bit with the blood.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily playing stupid with the blood. I was pretty open with him. I was like, "Hey, dude, I see some blood. You're going to have to find it."
Right.
But no, and I meant what I said, and I told him when we got done tracking the deer and everything, kind of when all the celebration and all of kind of the emotion stuff was over, he did a great job. And he got to experience something that was like really, like it was a complicated tracking job. Even though it wasn't a long tracking job, he got to see a little bit of everything.
Right.
And I told him realistically, I mean, where we were hunting, like I said, it was a fantastic farm. He was trying to track these deer going out of a field with multiple trails coming in. And these trails weren't just like normal trails. These are like upper echelon trails that you're going to see in North Carolina. Like, you'll be hard pressed to find a trail better than what these trails were.
Right.
And just with all the tracks and everything that were there, and kind of having to get it sorted out, and just him kind of knowing just in general just to look for tracks, because like he mentioned, that was one of the first things that he noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And then him picking the blood trail back up on his own and everything, like I felt like that was kind of the biggest thing from the whole hunt. Like, that was what he really got out of it. And to me, like, the things that he learned to take away from the hunt itself, the shooting the deer and everything, that's the easy part. Like he mentioned, he's really familiar with guns.
Right.
But that portion of tracking was really something, like, after the fact, I was like, oh, like, he doesn't even get how valuable this was, this little bit.
And you really have to change your viewpoint. Tracking isn't standing upright and just walking looking down. It's a lot more to that. Looking at all the area, reposition yourself. You can also use light to look at the trail to see where things might pop up, where if you're standing up, you might not see that at all. There's a lot that goes into it. You know, I think it's something you never get perfect at. It's kind of like golf. You just got to keep working on it.
No, and you're exactly right. Every situation with the tracking is going to be different. You do have times where you can literally sprint down the track and go right to the animal. But more often than not, it ends up becoming a long drawn out Easter egg hunt. I mean, really, some are worse than others. Some are on your hands and knees looking for pin drops. Some are, I mean, quarter size, $50 size drops every 5-10 yards. To me, that was the biggest learning experience for him. But just knowing Jordan's passion and everything, it was one of those things where I was like, I couldn't have been happier with how it all turned out. And knowing how much it meant to him, like, I'm glad that he's getting into hunting. You know,
he would be great to bring back on like next year. You know, after next year's season, and kind of like, hey man, how's it going? Where are you at? That kind of thing. Just have maybe just a sit down chit chat with him during our recording. That'd be great. And, you know, appreciative of Scott coming on, AxeOverland. He's got some great trips going all across. You talking about going to Ireland, Scotland, all that. I look forward to hearing more about that, and him working through the support network that he has in the UK. That was a really good eye opener. And then also just traveling into Europe. He's got a great channel, y'all. Definitely check it out. It'll be in the show notes. We will definitely have him back on at some point in the future as well. Look forward to that. As far as the Go Adventuring, we're going to keep on doing just like From the Field. We're going to keep bringing on interviews for that. And for Go Adventuring, I got Byron from Zombie Crawlers Jeep Club in Kentucky. And just to let you know, they're more than a Jeep Club. They have other vehicles in there too. He's going to be on. I'm also looking to interview Cheryl from herjeeplife.com. We got a date for that, and try and sit down and do a chit chat with her. And she's a great story, and I look forward to sharing that with you. Yeah, you know, we talked about it. We're thinking about bringing Nikki-G on for an interview, give you guys an understanding. Hey, who's this guy that calls in every week? He does have a YouTube channel. He's got a great story, and he's kind of professional voicemail caller if you really want to put him there. And then we also have a couple of Jeep enthusiasts you might know very well. So definitely subscribe. Stay tuned. We have a lot in store for y'all, and all the other things that we talked about in the past, those things are coming. This show is just going to get bigger, better, and we're going to bring you content. Look forward to that. Chuck, I mean, you got anything coming up this weekend? Any hunts? You're going to Alabama, right? You're ready to go?
Yeah, I'm not even close to ready to go. I'm waking up Saturday morning, and I'm going to go get in a squirrel, rabbit, dove hunt while I'm taking down some tree stands that I got to take with me to Alabama. I'll be leaving for Alabama next Thursday, picking up one of my buddies in Georgia. Get to Alabama late Thursday night. Probably won't get any hunting in Friday. Do a lot of scouting, but yeah, we'll be hunting for 4 or 5 days down there.
Hey, so what happened with that duck hunt, man? You didn't say anything. I didn't see any pictures, man. I had to put you on the spot.
Well, the gun went off. No, it was hot.
Was it?
Yeah, it was hot.
Is that I'd never been duck hunting, so I don't know anything other than you call it and you sit in this very blind, like whatever tall vegetation, maybe on a boat. It looks fun. Don't get me wrong, but is it really that hard?
Well, this first time I'd ever been duck hunting. I always picked on people duck hunting because, like, I'm not going to go out and freeze to death over one meal, you know, especially in North Carolina, central North Carolina, just not a lot of ducks. I happened to meet the guy that I went hunting with over the summer through work, and he actually works on the local lakes doing plant surveys for invasive aquatic species and stuff. Anyway, so we actually hunted from our kayaks out on a local lake here, Mountain Island Lake. And
do you have camouflage on those kayaks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what we did, like me and him, we met at the little put-in at 4:30, kayaked about a mile, pulled the kayaks actually out of the water up in the woods after we got the decoys set up. Pulled the kayaks up in the woods. He had some burlap and I had some camouflage mesh. We covered up our kayaks, put leaves and branches and stuff on them to camouflage them, and then we essentially stood right in the edge of the water behind some trees.
Okay.
And he had already warned me beforehand. It was really warm. Probably we were going to be hunting ducks that had been here a while, probably been shot at a good bit. More than likely, we were just going to see some wood ducks. And that was what we saw. We saw probably 7 or 8 wood ducks that came through. And we got a couple shots, not successful. The ducks were coming in fast. They were flying in kind of high. And they just not decoying very well. But no, it was still a blast. I mean, it was a ton of work. It was really strange to me that like other boats that were in the area were leaving at 8 o'clock.
Oh, really?
Like, put in all this work and you're leaving at 8. And essentially our hunt was done at like 8:30, but we stuck it out till about 9:30 before we started paddling back and try to jump some ducks and stuff. But yeah, no, and that's what he told me. He was like, yeah, he'll go out and he'll hunt an hour before work. And
that's
like,
pretty cool.
I'm hunting the best part of hunting. You know, after about 8:30, it's pretty much done for the day. So, but it was interesting. I'm hooked now. It's really weird. I mean, no,
birds are challenging. Hunt. Definitely are challenging.
Yeah, ton of work.
Yeah,
to go out and only hunt for a couple hours. I mean, you figure I spent more time in the dark getting ready for duck hunting than I spent in duck hunting, which is the total opposite of deer hunting. You know, I'm in the woods in the dark for an hour and I sit there till 10 or 11 o'clock. But a lot more action. You get to talk. You know, the interaction, everything was really cool. And being on the kayaks, that was another thing that it was just really cool about it. So, and that's how he does all his hunting, from a kayak.
It's pretty smart, actually. Very accessible to a lot of different areas. Maybe, you can't take in a bigger boat, and it's logistically it makes sense to me. So when you were talking about like when you were shooting it high, was that like straight above, or was it so our listeners can kind of understand the positioning challenge that you were shooting the ducks at?
Well, so we're standing in timber, essentially in a very narrow creek coming off of essentially it's part of a lake, but it's very riverine where we were at. But so we're standing in the timber, and behind us is a lot of hardwoods. Okay. And a little bit more, it's just more dense. Well, the ducks that we actually got a shot at came from behind us. So they came over top of our head, and I had hearing protection in. And so I didn't hear him coming. He heard him coming. But he got a shot first, and I got a shot. They were going away, but they were kind of going over the trees once he shot. Which, if it would have been mallards or something that were ducks that were a little bit more responsive to calls, he said we wouldn't have shot. I kind of already knew that because I've watched a little bit about duck hunting. I'm familiar enough to know where he wouldn't have wanted to booger them up. He would essentially want them to loop around and then fly into the decoys, and essentially you're shooting them at like 10 yards, 20 yards, in a perfect world. But typically wood ducks, typically they're going where they're going. And they're a smaller duck, so they were getting out of town. Yeah.
So, one for the duck, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And our goal, what we were hoping is they were going to be flying up the creek. And essentially, it was going to be like hunting doves, to where they were going to be flying by, like right in front of us, kind of up a little bit, but within the creek, within the trees and stuff, with a little bit better shot. And if we could have saw them coming up the creek, and that was kind of the goal for those. We were really hoping some mallards would be around. but it just didn't work out. Now, of course, as typically goes, I'm the ultimate you should have been here yesterday type of guy. Well, I should have been there tomorrow because I don't know what kind of weather y'all got, but Saturday, the wind picked up here, wind blowing out of the north. It turned off real cold. And my buddy that I went with, he has a pond behind his house. And when he woke up Sunday morning, he texted me Saturday night. He's like, there's going to be ducks down here tomorrow. And when he woke up Sunday morning, the pond behind his house was covered with ducks. He had ringnecks, mergansers, mallards, I mean, the whole show. And he's actually going out in the morning because he went to pick his son up today and rode by a pond that had redheads and mallards and stuff all in it. So he's going to go try a new hole tomorrow.
So he's ready. Well, you got outside. You got to experience that whole new experience, and you learned stuff. So to me, that's a huge success, man.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm gonna try to make up for it this weekend if I can. If I can come home with one dove, one rabbit, and one squirrel, I'll be tickled to death.
Man, that sounds like a country song. All right. Well, hey, y'all. Thanks again for joining us this week. Make sure to subscribe to the show and maybe even leave us a 5-star rating.
Thanks for listening to the Route 16 Grind. We want to thank our amazing sponsors, Warren Industries, Tuffy Security Products, Sea State Coffee, and Route 16 Off-Road for their support. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and more. Just look for Route 16. That's ROOTONESIX. Or just go to Route16.com. Until next week, plan smart, be safe, and as always, be prepared.
One dove, one rabbit, one squirrel.
Yeah!